There sometimes also is a incentive structure missing that really rewards innovation. Within a startup setting, there is no room for things like zombie projects. The easiest way to get fired is by working within innovation.
Welcome to the Culture Edge podcast. Are you an entrepreneur or a change maker who's frustrated with the pace of change inside your organisation? Well, this show will, I hope, offer you valuable practical advice as you navigate your career. And our guests will also help you answer the question, am I better matched to the corporate world or to the startup world? My name is Stephen Parkins, and I'm determined to help people like you and your business build a strong, healthy culture of innovation. Today we're joined by Jasper Brand. He's partner at the Talent Institute, where he leads a team of innovation professionals. The big contrast that Jasper sees between corporates and startups is people's emotional investment in innovation. So we're going to talk about resources, execution speed, experiments, incentives and rewards, and much more. So let's get started.
Well, hi there, Jasper. Welcome to the Culture Edge podcast. Thanks for joining us here today.
Hi, Steve. Thank you very much for having me, and looking forward to discussing this wondrous topic with you.
As you know, the topics that we investigate with this podcast all relate to entrepreneurs, intrapreneurs, and especially the culture of innovation that we see in big companies. Now, I know that you and I, we've worked together in the past, and we share a lot of opinions around what works and what doesn't work in big companies. But I'm curious to get your perspective today, given your experience of the last few years. And I know there's one topic that's dear to you, and that's around the emotional investment. So what can you tell us about the emotional investment that you see at corporates and also more in the startup world?
Yeah, so that's a very interesting topic, Steve, because being emotionally invested, in my honest opinion, is one of the crucial aspects for delivering actual results in an innovation context. Because innovating is hard work, it's not always easy, and you need to really believe in the things that you do, and so be emotionally invested to be able to navigate that treacherous water and to get to actual results. And I have seen the dynamics of working in a startup where I joined 5 years ago, but also working at a corporate, which was a large Dutch bank, for about 10 years. And I really saw that there is a night and day difference compared to working in a corporate where normally people are a bit more emotionally detached from their job and the things that they do. And working in a startup where people really believe in the mission of the company that they work for. And it really shows in the fact that people are more creative, a bit more innovative, and also willing to go the extra mile. And you really see that in the results of the people and the things that they work on.
Just based on the experience that you went through, what were the different results then that you saw? What were the consequences of this different level of emotional attachment?
Yeah, so I think one of the things is that within a startup setting, there is no room for things like zombie projects. And I really like that term. A zombie project basically is a project where everybody working on it knows that it's never going to be a big success. And it's basically just therapy for people to have something at hand, do something, while deep down they really know, okay, this is not going to move the needle. This is not really going to be a success out there. Within a startup, resources are always tight. And because of that, it really forces you to focus on actual value. And also one of the other things is that within corporates, there are always quite rigorous processes that don't really stimulate ownership of people. Sometimes it is even used to don't show ownership because there's always a process that you can hide behind. Within the startup, because of the fact that time is limited, resources are limited, those things are absent. And that really forces people to focus on things that actually add value.
That's a really good point. And the idea of processes, structure, we see those often as a good thing in big companies because they provide stability in the core business. They provide predictability. And there's, of course, reason why these companies became big, because they learned to do things very well. So you're saying those things are negative for innovation then, or at least they trip you up in some cases?
Yeah, I think so. I think within a corporate, sometimes innovating can feel like navigating a labyrinth of red tape. Whereas in a startup, sometimes it feels a bit more as being in a speedboat where you're able to pivot and adapt way more swiftly. And I think these contrasts also make why it is hard for an entrepreneur to function within a corporate setting and hard for a manager to work in a startup, because within a startup, you feel things are going very fast and maybe structure is missing. As in within a corporate, you feel that structure is there, but it is killing all of the innovative spark that is there. And I think the two can really learn from each other. So that is really something to be learned from both. Because of course you do need processes within big corporate organizations to innovate in a structured manner. However, it should really still fester the innovative mindset of people and not kill all of their ideas and all of their flexibility, basically.
Sure. Yeah. As you know, a big theme that I want to explore with this podcast is entrepreneurial minds like yourself who've got experience of both the corporate world and the startup world, and where do people like you feel more at home? And you've made the transition from the corporate world to the more entrepreneurial world. And how has that played out for you over the last few years? What would you say have been your biggest learnings, biggest challenges, and where you've had the most success in the last couple of years?
So I think one of the good things that you bring to the table after having worked at a corporate and joining a startup is that structure. You have seen how a big organization works, how it functions, what structures should be in place to actually get to results. And the moment that you join a startup, normally what is missing is that structure, right? Because each and every idea is a good idea. That means that there is no focus, and then you tend to do a lot of things at the same time, but don't get to actual results. So I think what really helped me in becoming successful within the startup that I joined, which is now not a startup anymore, but we grew to quite a big size and we are now a scale up, is we really structured our way of working and we structured the focus that we had. On the other hand, what we now still have, because we as an organization, we have a mission to empower a next generation of innovators, designers, and marketeers, meaning that we train young people to really provide our clients with the execution power to make a difference within these kind of projects. And we still bring that entrepreneurial mindset that we as a startup have to the table within a corporate setting, where we really try to foster ownership. We want to have our people, but also the teams that they work in, to really take charge of the projects that they work in end to end, because providing autonomy and giving them a clear mandate to innovate without having too much hierarchical or bureaucratic hurdles really is a very big reason why teams are successful.
Yeah, and I guess
that's one of the things.
That brings the best of both worlds then into these corporate environments. So are you able to share one or two examples of the kind of value that you've brought into a big company, some of the projects that you've worked on lately?
Yeah, so I think one of the main assets that we bring to the table for these kind of projects is speed in experimenting and speed in validating. So, for instance, if we are working for a venture for one of our clients, which normally are market-leading companies within either the Netherlands or Europe, sometimes they have been working on ideas that they think are valuable for quite a long time already. However, the truth is out there. And our people have been trained in all the latest digital skills, meaning they can set up a proof of concept, an MVP within a day, test it using all different marketing channels to actually see whether something is a good idea, yes or no. And we help our clients with making data-driven decisions on these projects instead of working on assumptions without actually validating that stuff. And we do that by following an innovation structure that allows you to first prove that there's a problem worthwhile solving, then showcase that the idea that we have actually holds value, but also setting up marketing, using marketing techniques to actually show that people are willing to pay for the products and services that we thought up for.
Yeah, so you're not just telling them, come on, guys, you really need to experiment more. You actually help them and do it with them and say, look, we're going to build this for you, and at least as a prototype to validate that, okay, people will use this, they'll click on this, they'll pay for it, etc.
Yeah, exactly. I think one of the main things that we bring to the table is the actual skills to build things, to do things, to create stuff that validates the assumptions that we have. And of course, still, then we only bring the resources to the table because we are not the let's say, agency that helps clients with setting up an innovation structure, but implementing it. So we are always a bit dependent on the structure that our clients already has in place. And what we see happening quite often is that there is a lack of a structure that allows teams to really take ownership for the projects that they work on. But also, and then zooming back in on that emotional involvement that people should have, there sometimes also is a incentive structure missing that really rewards innovation. So for instance, looking at myself, so being part of a startup, of course, is, we are one-on-one part of the growth journey that we have as a company. So everyone here feels invested in making this company into a huge success. And we also get rewarded if we do, right? And within a corporate, normally, there is no structure that really rewards innovation or rewards impactful contributions to innovation and growth. And I think setting up a performance-based structure that really provides people with rewards for innovation, or maybe even ownership through stock options or whatever, that's really a game changer that I see has been really hard to implement. However, would be a really big game changer for our clients.
You're listening to the Culture Edge podcast. If you care about innovation and you want practical lessons for your career, you're in a great place with our entrepreneurially minded guests. Subscribe and be the first to know each time we release a new episode.
It is tricky. I mean, I know I've looked into that as well, and for every suggestion, I've always had about 6 or 7 reasons why it's not possible, and absolutely can't be done. But I absolutely agree with you on the principle that you need better incentives for these things to happen.
Yeah, look, we both know how hard it is to get a idea from 0 to 1, or maybe even from 0 to 10. And to enforce people to actually do that, and to really also reward them for all the extra effort that they're putting in, for all the eating glass that they are doing in this, especially the initial phase of ventures and startups. And you also need to provide some kind of incentive structure. But of course, that has been very challenging within corporate settings.
So if we just zoom out a little bit and try and summarize a bit your various points, what do you see as the 1 or 2 big challenges that exist for corporates today? If we just had to bring it down to a quick summary, how would you say it?
So I think the first thing is to get people more emotionally invested. I think we've touched upon the topic a couple of times already. And to do so, I think you need to get people who have the skill set and mindset to actually make and do things, and then give these people a mandate to innovate and take end-to-end ownership. Because people increasingly want to make a positive impact, and it's crucial for motivating them to go the extra mile to actually be able to do so. And if possible, create some kind of a sense of ownership through a financial model, if that's possible. Although, as said, this has been proven to be very hard to do in a corporate setting. And I think the second one for corporates, and this is a very big challenge at the moment as well, is providing stability and continuity within your innovation portfolio. Please get rid of all these zombie projects, because people are not motivated to make them into a big success. But also make sure that there still is room for innovation projects in a macroeconomic situation that has become unstable. So unfortunately, we now see quite a lot of clients who have either full stopped their innovation efforts or switch their innovation efforts because it needs to be aligned with the core. And that's a bad thing, because we know that focusing on innovation, even in hard times, really increases the chance of you being successful in the long run. Providing some stability there is something that's also quite important.
Yeah, so I've fully endorsed that. I think it shows an element of maturity of a company and innovation. First, that they think in terms of a portfolio. Not all companies even reason in terms of a portfolio. It can often be a loose grouping of projects that sort of don't have a common theme, or at least they're not looking at the portfolio effect that they have in place. But like you say, to maintain a degree of stability and continuity, and to think long term about these things, that's really not a given at all. So now the really tricky question for you, Jasper, what do you propose? How do you think big companies should at least start tackling these issues? For the ones who, let's say, they're aware of the problem, they agree with the problem, what would you recommend to them to take some action there?
Yeah, so very good question. And unfortunately, there's no really easy fix for these things. But I think to approach this challenge from a resource point of view. So making sure that the people working on innovation are empowered to actually make an impact and also feel that they are emotionally invested within the things that they work on. I would say that, it all surrounds providing them with autonomy, with mastership, and with purpose. I think that's really, I'm a big fan of Daniel Pink's book on that you should provide people with these three aspects for them to really make an impact. And to do so, I think, first of all, you want to empower ownership, and you want to have a culture that really fosters ownership by allowing individuals and teams to take charge of those projects end to end. Give them autonomy, give them a mandate, and within that mandate, provide them with the room to make errors, to set up experiments, and to actually be an entrepreneur. The second thing that I think is really important is you want to have a innovation governance and support structure that also allow people for experimentation and risk taking. So think about designated budgets, think about designated timeframes, but also resources that are actually available for innovation projects. Because often you also see that when there are actually investments that are being needed, then it's becoming hard because the companies don't want to make the actual investments there. And the third one is try to introduce some kind of a employee incentive model, and it doesn't always have to be money; it can be anything, but really develop an incentive structure that rewards innovation, that reward risk taking within a corporate, because that really is needed for these projects to be a success.
Yeah, that's absolutely great. And especially, I think what you just said at the end about an incentive model that can go beyond just the financial. So clearly, money does motivate. It does help people if they've got a bonus that's linked to the work that they do. But from my findings, certainly incentivizing innovation behaviors more than necessarily the outcomes can really help, because you're rewarding people for making the right choices, for acting in the right way. And it takes away the randomness of, well, what can be a lucky or unlucky outcome. Because at the end of the day, let's say you launch a project that proves unsuccessful, or an experiment that proves unsuccessful. You don't want people to be punished for the fact that they proved something wrong. You want them to be rewarded for the fact that they took that risk and that they experimented. So I think certainly working on the behavior over the outcome is one that I've found is a helpful one.
Yeah, I fully agree. And the reason why that is so important is you want to stimulate this behavior in the future. And if you somehow have negative consequences based on risk-taking behavior within an innovative context, in the long run, you are going to destroy all the incentive that people have to actually make a difference. And then you're going to destroy the emotional investment that they have within the work that they do. Because So I think there's a saying in a corporate setting: the easiest way to get fired is by working within innovation, because it is always the area that is scaled down the moment the economic situation becomes bad. It's always easy to work on an initiative that is that you have an ambassador on a senior level, but the moment that ambassador leaves, your initiative is being killed. Or it's also very easy to make a decision that is not aligned with, let's say, the corporate way of working, and then again your head is on the table. And I think that is something that in essence needs to change, because that's quite a big risk, and you are chasing away the people who are actually able to make a difference for your organization.
I think it is really sad that is a reality in, dare I say it, most companies, certainly a lot of companies, that people often see innovation as a form of career suicide. But of course, the target audience of this podcast is people who are a bit more optimistic than that and hope that they can make it a success. So I don't know if you have a last piece of advice for someone, let's say someone who's sitting in a corporation at the moment in an innovation role, or thinking of becoming an entrepreneur, but maybe they feel a little bit powerless because they don't have a managerial function, they don't have their own budget. What would be your tip to someone who's still got that optimism, would like to make a difference, but they're hitting their heads against walls of bureaucracy and inertia as it stands today?
A very good question. I think my biggest advice would be just do it, because in the end, all the innovators that I have worked with that were good, yourself included, of course, Steve, I've always seen them end up at a better place than where they were the moment they started to do innovation. So I think it's really a way to empower yourself and also to empower the organization that you're working for. So just show initiative and try to challenge the way of working that has been there for a long time, because you are needed to break through those hurdles. So it's a bit let's say corny, but I would say just do it and go for it, because it's people like you who are needed to actually make a difference within these organizations.
Super. I think some really, really wise words there to wrap things up. Before we go, Jasper, how should people reach out to you? How can we get in touch with you if we'd like to hear more?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So people can, of course, find me on LinkedIn. My name is Jasper Brand, or they send an email to jasper.brand@thetalentinstitute.nl. Always more than happy to discuss. And I can also tell a bit more then about our company, the Talent Institute, who is, let's say, the best provider of innovation, marketing, and design talent. So if you have an initiative within an organization that needs to speed up a bit more, and you need some people who are actually able to get things moving, then reaching out to us is your best next move.
Fantastic. Well, we'll be sure to share those links you just mentioned in the description of the podcast, so people are free to reach out then if they'd like to hear more. Great. Well, thank you very much, Jasper. It's been a real pleasure. We could carry on talking about these topics for hours, if not days, because we're both very passionate about them. Thanks a lot for your time. It's been great having you on the show.
Thanks a lot, Steve, and speak soon.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this episode of the Culture Edge podcast. As you heard just now, our guests are a highly diverse group of entrepreneurs and innovators, each with fantastic experience in both the corporate world and the startup world. So subscribe to the Culture Edge podcast today and join us again for more practical advice for your career and your impact in innovation.